Hello everyone, we are Product Divinity. I'm Jared Ramos, the Product Manager of Product Divinity.
I'm Joshua Ermitab. I'm the game developer of Product Divinity.
I'm Kaylee Smith. I go by Alfie on the team. I create all the concept art and I initially make all the design.
And I'm Isabel Millett, and I'm the design manager.
So what you just saw was a intro video, a little trailer for Dark Reign. It's the game we're working on. What Dark Reign is, it's a 2D role-playing game which aims to solve the problem of social awareness, or in the main character's case, the lack thereof. In the main character you play as Aerith. She is a queen deposed of her power and stripped of her monarchical throne. And throughout the game, you engage in various combat situations, dialogue, and you engage in with hyperbolic personifications of characteristics that Aerith exhibited throughout her reign. And through those engagements and dialogue-driven story, she becomes self-aware of her actions. Only through these gross depictions in front of her, when she fights them, when she conquers them, does she realize how her actions affected the people around her. And through those interactions, and when the end game hits, the player has grown and evolved with the main character through these crazy, unique social experiences. We intend to deliver that feeling through seamless gameplay and fluid player mechanics. And by that, with those features included, we intend to create non-static characters. So what that means basically is that these characters are dynamic, they're not superficial, they're not shallow. You can connect with them, they're not just a NPC player on the screen, but you interact with them and you kind of live vicariously through them. And in turn, that creates character relatability and kind of the human aspect of a fictional virtual character. And that is built up through dialogue between other characters and the general story arc that the player engages in. From then, when we hope that when the end game is achieved, that there is a sort of call to action to the player through the actions they've taken in the game, that kind of call for them to look at what they're doing, make sure that their actions are not affecting those around them in a negative way, as the main character's actions have, and it's destroyed her livelihood, everything she owns. And that in turn creates empathy for that character, either it could be detest or it could be genuine sympathy for her situation. Since we want to create Dark Reign more uniquely than most RPG games out there, we decided we wanted to release it on a mobile platform. Not only for ease of access, but it's more of a diverse market, since everyone has a phone, everyone uses a phone. They don't want to go home and sit on a computer if they've been working all day on a computer. So they go home, sit on their phone. They don't have to buy a Nintendo DS or a Switch, but they can access it with the device they already have. That can be accessed across multiple platforms, from iPads to phones, Androids. We intend to release it on both platforms, both Android and Apple. We decided for monetization purposes, we want to include in-game advertisements that aren't necessarily intrusive, but are prompted by an action that the player takes. Say, the player's fighting a difficult boss, and the player's died multiple times, an ad will pop up, giving the player the option to watch a 30-second video that would grant them a power-up in the next boss fight. And those ads will be propelled by Unity Ad Network, which is a service offered in Unity. And yes.
All right, here you'll see our use cases. This is a broad overview of how the levels are set up and when the ads are triggered and when the transitions are triggered. As you see, this is a basic overview of the first 3 levels, the third being the boss fight. So as you see, the last one, it says if player wins, give power up, which will give you special abilities in the game if you beat the boss. But if you die multiple times, like Jared said, you will given the option to load an ad. And then this shows also when we initiate the boss. These are some of our sprites that we have made for the game that you'll see in the game. You'll play as, to the right, you'll see the boss, and to the left, you'll see Aerith, our main character. GameMaker to Unity, the main challenge with GameMaker to Unity was learning a whole new scripting language, because I personally used GameMaker for 2 years. And the reason why we changed to Unity is because of the fact that it can export to mobile for free. And GameMaker didn't give us that option at the moment. But the main challenge with us was that Unity took longer and took a lot more scripting than I thought it would take than GameMaker did. What we learned was that we have so much more options with Unity and the things that we could do with it, and the pros and cons. The pro is that we can actually make a mobile game. The con was learning a whole new operating system. Game functionality, so me as a developer, I wanted to hit all the main points that I made of RPG game, which is a role-playing game. Mechanics is the first one. Everyone needs mechanics to run a game. That includes moving up, down, left, right, attacking enemies, initiating battles, and moving between levels. Progression is most important because players want to see how they do in the game. Progression includes leveling up. When you level up in the game, your attack goes up, your defense goes up, and you see how you're progressing through the game, so it's not the same level throughout the whole entire game. It adds variety. Your statistics, same thing. It's our numbers, so levels, health system, and all our enemy health systems and managers. Interactions with other characters in the game, and with other enemies and bosses.
What we want to do for the future of Project Divinity and of Dark Reign, we want to eventually use the sprites we've created, like for Aerith and the various bosses, in potential sequels or DLCs that may expand the story arc or completely offshoot into new things. We could reuse the assets we've already created and also add more through potentially having consumers pay for that, or offering free expansions with also in-game advertisements as well. Like Josh said, we've hit kind of a wall with the GameMaker to Unity, but we overcame that. The thing with GameMaker was that if you wanted to export to mobile platforms, it was a $300 upgrade. And while for a large company with financial expendability, that's no problem, that's a no-brainer, but for a group of kids that have limited financial expendability, we thought transferring to a new engine altogether would be more feasible, and we learned that Unity gave us far more options to make the game better. Another issue we ran into was finding a storage service for the data of the game, and we decided to go with Firebase, which would store on the cloud, and the player could access their data anywhere from any device. And another storage aspect was a security aspect, is that we were going to have the player use a Game Center account that's built into mostly every iPhone to sign in. That way, security and data management would not be put onto us, but rather onto the company that they use to sign in. And so we're going to have, we have a test of the game, like a test field that's going to basically showcase the user interface and kind of the mechanics that we've done so far. We did run into an issue exporting the fully animated main character sprite, so what you're going to see is a placeholder, but those animations would transfer onto the actual character, Aerith.
What I'm showing here is the test field that we use to display all of our mechanics that we have.
You gotta switch it to
Yeah.
the other screen. It's two screens. There we go.
Alright, that's good. So what I wanted to show here, this is what we use to test all our mechanics that we add to the game. So at the top left, you will see our mechanics such as health manager and level. For the sake of showing it, so we don't keep dying as I show the game, we made the player the highest level you can, which is level 30, with a health of 100. The game features basic mechanics such as moving left and right, and we added depth to the game so the game isn't that boring for the player, so it's not just a flat screen. But we wanted to keep it minimal because remember, you're playing on a mobile device. So with a bunch of stuff all over the screen, it's going to be kind of confusing to actually play the game. We will display of getting hit as a player. We can move down here next to the water. I will showcase all of this. move around. There's various different objects in the world that you can explore. This is only one level that we have to test. And then collisions against the border of the world.
How do you control movement on mobile?
Yes, we actually have it mapped. So up, down, left, right is the same thing as a gamepad, virtual gamepad that's on your screen. You see in mobile games. Same thing as touch down, touch left, touch right, left.
So is it going to be a virtual gamepad or is it going to be left, right on the screen?
Left, right. It's like, I don't know how to say it. It's a virtual gamepad. It's like a plus button on the bottom
right.
right.
It'll be a gamepad then.
Yeah,
So
gamepad.
because there's other ones where you touch the side of the screen.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's
it's too late,
Yeah,
so no, it's a
that'll be
gamepad.
impact.
See it. That is it.
Yep, that's all we have.
Let me-
So that's the placeholder model because the animations for Aerith.
Yeah, to export
Did
it
you not
and
export
plugging out when we're trying to export it to the actual application. Kind of want to bring the whole game in, like the whole Unity file in. That would take too long, so I wanted to export it to make it more mobile for us to play it on.
Was that the end of your presentation?
Yes. Any questions?
Target audience. There was a slide, but I couldn't read what age group you're targeting.
We're trying to target the, they're called the traditional gamers, which is about gamers 21 to 35. And we decided to use that margin as a, as our target audience because it makes it the largest margin, about 33%.
So if your target audience is 21 to 30, whatever, how does social awareness come into play for that group?
I think because they kind of, especially when you're, as an adult, like kind of growing up, going into different jobs or you're starting a career, you kind of lose sight of how your individual actions kind of ripple into, say, your corporation. You kind of lose track of that because you're part of this giant mold, but this game would kind of bring about more of a self-aware sense to what you're doing.
So target market is in that age range, but more directed at the earlier stages of that age range?
Yes.
What are the skills or concepts that are being reinforced?
The concept of social awareness and and battling with the issues that you have to deal with. Like, for example, there's all the bosses in the game are basically manifestations of like cruelty and power, and sometimes people, you know, they want to be in power, they like feeling like they're in control. So essentially she's battling these different things so that she can overcome like being power hungry, wanting to hurt people just for her own gain, because that's how her kingdom fought. Her kingdom has started to fall and she was exiled.
And while people may battle with these like internally, this is kind of like a physical manifestation of that battle, but it's taking place on a real life physical scale.
And so how do you teach that to your player? How do they learn that this demon I'm fighting is aggression?
Eric, before each battle, she has some sort of interesting, unique interaction with that embodiment. Each one has its own like characteristics and how it behaves and all that. And basically, it kind of like it's in a way it tries to get you to connect with these monsters in order to get you to understand them better. So then while you're fighting them, you know, you have a bit of a better idea of what they are. You don't have any idea on how they're going to act or anything like that when you go into battle. So it even may take a few times because you're becoming more aware of its actions and thus your own.
How many levels will you have at launch?
On launch, I plan to have at least 6, because you saw that was the first 3. I want to have 2 bosses out, so every 3 is a boss that we're going to have, and each boss is different. Like we said, power, cruelty,
Different mechanics for each boss.
And what's your time frame for that?
time frame. I want 6 levels would be to have scripted out and all the different bosses, probably 2 months to 3.
At minimum.
Yeah, that's minimum.
How are you marketing this?
Oh, what was I say?
We're gonna post on the App Store for on iOS and on Google Play for Androids, and we're going to use the in-game advertisements to gather like money and monetization.
We're also going to be advertising on social media as well, like creating a Facebook page, Twitter, and sponsoring that, creating advertisements.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Twitter gives you the option to target to certain audiences that they use that you can pay for, but it costs money to promote it to different people. So on Twitter, let's say you're falling the age range of 21 to 35, and you look at games, so then Twitter will be like, hey, you play games like this, we'll show product Divinity's ad on your webpage, on Twitter. So you'll get an advertisement on that.
And are there any other games out there that are similar to this?
Yes, there's a game that's we were kind of inspired by, Binding of Isaac. It's a little bit more out there compared to our game. It uses more like abstract enemies, but it conveys sort of the same message of this like child's actions, like how it affected him and his family and his life.
And so what sets you apart from that game?
A lot. In Binding of Isaac, there isn't any dialogue between the characters. There are only cutscenes and a narrator. But in this game, we actually get to interact with the characters and experience sort of firsthand of what like Aerith experienced.
And I think through understanding your enemies and how they affected your character as you play through them, that kind of sets it apart as well, because you're seeing she's coming in contact firsthand with her actions, and she hasn't had to do that before. And this, it's traumatic, and that traumatic build-up kind of climaxes within the boss fight itself through dialogue and eventually conquering the boss.
I will tell you, your graphics, what you showed, they're gorgeous. They're
Thank you.
phenomenal. Very talented.
Your character sprites were made by me, and all the character concept art, the main visual like design, like the title screen and all of that, that was made by Josh.
Very good job.
Cool, good job, guys.
Thank you.